I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. What I'm about to tell you will change the way you think about family forever. I donated my kidney to my son. That's what any mother would do for her child, right? I carried him for 9 months, raised him for 34 years, and when he said he was dying, I didn't hesitate for a second. But I never imagined the secret behind it was a plan carefully constructed over 6 months. 3 days after surgery, he showed up with a stack of papers evicting me from my own home. The emotional pain cut deeper than any surgical wound. Suddenly, a doctor burst into the room with fury written across her face and said something that made my son's face go white. What she revealed next would destroy everything I thought I knew about my family and save me from a betrayal I never saw coming. But before my name is Melissa Hartford, and at 62 years old, I never thought I'd be sitting alone at my kitchen table on a Tuesday morning, staring at an empty chair and wondering where everything went wrong. The house was too quiet. It had been too quiet for 5 years now, ever since David passed away. My husband, my partner, the man who'd held my hand through 37 years of marriage, 3 miscarriages before Brandon finally came, and every joy and heartbreak life threw at us. He died of a heart attack. No warning, just collapsed in the garage one Saturday afternoon while working on his old Chevy. I found him there lying on the concrete, his hand still clutching a wrench. The paramedics said he was gone before he hit the ground. They said it like that was supposed to be comforting. Like the fact that he didn't suffer somehow made it easier for me. It didn't. I picked up my coffee cup, David's old Northwestern University mug that I couldn't bring myself to pack away, and took a sip. Cold. I'd made it an hour ago and forgot to drink it. That happened a lot these days. Starting things and forgetting to finish them. Outside the window of our 2-story home in Lincoln Park, December, snow fell in thick, heavy flakes. The kind of snow that made Chicago look like a postcard, but turned the streets into a nightmare. David used to love this weather. He'd stand at this same window with his coffee and say, "Look at that, Mel. God's putting a fresh coat of paint on the world." I hadn't heard anyone call me Mel in 5 years. The house felt enormous around me. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, hardwood floors that David refinished himself a backyard with a garden I'd stopped tending after he died. Worth about $800,000, the realtor said last year, when I'd briefly considered selling. But I couldn't do it. This house held every memory I had. Brandon's first steps right there in the living room. His high school graduation party in the backyard. The Christmas mornings with wrapping paper covering every surface. David's last breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast eaten at this very table. I pushed the coffee away and pulled the photo album toward me instead. It was a habit I'd developed looking through old pictures, trying to remember when things were good, when my family was whole. There was Brandon at age 5, missing his front teeth, holding up a finger painting like it was the Mona Lisa. I remembered that day. I'd hung that painting on the refrigerator for 2 years until it finally fell apart. Brandon at 10 in his Little League uniform, David's arm around his shoulders. They'd won the championship that year. David coached the team. Brandon hit the winning run. Brandon at 18 in his cap and gown, standing between David and me. He was taller than both of us by then. Handsome, smart, full of promise. Brandon at 25, graduation from Northwestern, his father's alma mater. Master's degree in business. We'd been so proud. David cried at that graduation. Actually cried. "Our boy's going to change the world, Mel," he'd whispered to me. The last family photo. Taken at Thanksgiving 6 months before David died. The 3 of us around this same kitchen table. Brandon was 30. He'd just gotten a job with some marketing firm, or so he said. Looking at the photo now, I noticed something I'd missed before. Brandon wasn't looking at the camera. He was looking at his phone. I closed the album. That was 7 years ago. 7 years since that last family Thanksgiving. After David died, everything changed. Brandon stopped coming around as much. At first I understood. He was grieving. We both were. Grief makes people do strange things, pull away from the ones they love. But days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. Months into years. I'd call him, leave voicemails. "Hi, honey, it's Mom. Just wanted to hear your voice. Call me back when you get a chance." He never did. I'd text him. Simple things. "Thinking of you. Love you." He'd respond days later with a thumbs up emoji. Last Mother's Day 6 months ago, I'd waited all day for a call. Just a call. 5 minutes to hear my son's voice and know he was thinking of me. The call never came. At 9 p.m. I got a text. "Sorry, Mom, crazy busy. Love you." 3 words. "Sorry, Mom," and "love you," with a period, not an exclamation point. That's what our relationship had become. Periods instead of exclamation points. My birthday was 3 months ago, September 23rd, 62 years old. I'd made myself a small yellow cake with chocolate frosting, David's favorite, and sat at this table alone singing happy birthday to myself so quietly that even I could barely hear it. Brandon sent a text at 11 p.m. "Happy birthday, Mom. Sorry I missed you." He didn't miss me. He forgot me. I stood up from the table, my knees protesting. Arthritis. Another gift of getting older. I walked to the living room, to the mantel above the fireplace where I kept the photos I couldn't bear to pack away. David and me on our wedding day. David holding newborn Brandon in the hospital, looking terrified and overjoyed at the same time. Brandon's school pictures year by year showing a boy growing into a man. And then they stopped. No pictures of Brandon after age 30. Because after David died, Brandon stopped coming home for holidays. Stopped visiting. Stopped being part of this family. I picked up the phone. I'd called Brandon 12 times this month. December 10th. 12 calls in 10 days. All of them went to voicemail. I told myself I wouldn't call again. I told myself I had to stop being that mother. The one who clung too tight. The one who couldn't let go. But I dialed anyway. Ring, ring, ring. "Hi, you've reached Brandon Hartford. Leave a message." Beep. "Hi, honey, it's Mom again." My voice cracked. I cleared my throat. "I know you're busy. I just wanted to hear your voice. It's snowing here. Your father loved this kind of snow. Remember, he used to make you hot chocolate and you'd watch it together." I was rambling. I always rambled on these voicemails. "Anyway, call me when you get a chance. I love you, sweetheart. Beep. The voicemail cut me off. 30 seconds. That's all I got. I set the phone down and walked to the window. Outside, a young couple walked by, holding hands, laughing as snow fell on their shoulders. They looked so happy, so complete. I pressed my hand against the cold glass. "David," I whispered to the empty room. "I've lost him. I've lost our boy, and I don't know how to get him back." The house didn't answer. It never did. I made myself dinner that night, chicken soup from a can eaten standing at the stove because I couldn't face sitting at that empty table again. I took my blood pressure medication, washed my face, put on my nightgown, one of David's old t-shirts that still smelled like him if I buried my face in it and imagined hard enough. I lay in bed in the same spot I'd slept in for 37 years and stared at the ceiling. "Please, God," I prayed into the darkness. "Please let him call. Please let him remember he has a mother. Please don't let me die alone in this house without seeing my son one more time." But God didn't answer either. I fell asleep clutching my phone, hoping it would ring. It didn't. 3 days later, December 13th, 8:40 p.m., there was a knock on my door. I was in the living room, half watching some game show on TV, half dozing in David's old recliner. The knock jolted me awake. My heart jumped. Nobody knocked on my door at this hour. Nobody knocked on my door at any hour anymore. I struggled out of the recliner, grabbing my cane. I didn't always need it, but my left knee had been bothering me lately, and shuffled to the front door. Through the peephole, I saw a figure standing on the porch, shoulders hunched against the falling snow. I knew that silhouette. "Brandon." I fumbled with the deadbolt, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn the lock. "Brandon." I yanked the door open. My son stood on the porch, and my heart broke all over again. He looked terrible. His face was gaunt pale as the snow falling around him. His hair, usually so neatly styled, hung in his face, greasy and unkempt. He wore a thin jacket, inadequate for December in Chicago, and his hands trembled where they hung at his sides. "Mom," his voice was barely a whisper. "Oh my God, Brandon, get inside. You'll freeze to death." I grabbed his arm and pulled him into the house. He felt so thin under that jacket. When had he gotten so thin? I slammed the door behind him and turned on the hall light. In the better light, he looked even worse. Dark circles under his eyes, stubble on his face, and something else, something in his eyes. Fear. "Honey, what's wrong?" "What happened?" I reached for his face, but he flinched away. "Mom, He swallowed hard. "Can we sit down?" Of course, baby." I led him to the living room, to the couch. He sank into it like his legs wouldn't hold him anymore. Let me get you something. Are you hungry? When did you last eat? You look— Mom, stop! He held up a hand. Please, just sit down. I need to tell you something. The way he said it made my blood run cold. I lowered myself into David's recliner, my hand clutching the armrest so hard my knuckles went white. What is it, Brandon, you're scaring me? He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. I'm sick, Mom. The world tilted. What, Mom? I'm sick. I've been sick for a while now. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want you to worry, but— He put his face in his hands. His shoulders shook. I'm dying, Mom. I'm dying. I couldn't breathe. The room spun. Dying? What do you mean dying? From what did you see a doctor? Multiple doctors. He looked up at me and tears ran down his face. My son, my baby boy, crying. I have kidney failure, Mom. Stage 4 chronic kidney disease. My kidneys are shutting down. But there are treatments. Dialysis, transplants. Brandon, there are options. I've been on dialysis for 6 months. It's not working anymore. And the transplant list— He shook his head. I'm not high enough on the list. They said it could be years before I get a kidney. Years I don't have. I was on my feet before I knew I was moving. I crossed to him, sat beside him on the couch, pulled him into my arms. He folded against me like he used to when he was little, when he'd had a nightmare or scraped his knee or gotten his heart broken by his first girlfriend. Shh, baby, it's okay. We'll figure this out. We'll find a way. There is no way, Mom. His voice was muffled against my shoulder. The doctor said I have maybe 6 months, maybe less. My body is shutting down. I'm so tired all the time. I can barely work. I lost my job last month. I can barely afford my medication. I didn't know where else to go. You should have come to me sooner. You should have told me. I held him tighter. I'm your mother. You're never a burden to me. Never. He pulled back, wiping his eyes. I didn't want you to see me like this. Weak. Dying. Dad always said Hartford men were strong. And look at me. Your father would have said you're the strongest man he knows for fighting this hard. I cupped his face in my hands. We're going to beat this, Brandon. I don't care what the doctors say. We're going to fight. He shook his head. It's too late, Mom. Unless— He trailed off. Unless what? He stood up, walked to the window, stared out at the falling snow. The doctors ran tests. On me. On potential donors in my life. Friends. Co-workers. Nobody was a match. He turned back to me. Nobody except you. The words hung in the air between us. Me. You're a perfect match, Mom. The doctor said it's rare, but it happens. You could, if you wanted to, you could give me one of your kidneys. You'd be saving my life. I didn't even hesitate. Then I'll do it. Mom, no. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. I stood up, walked to him, took his hands in mine. Brandon, you're my son. You're all I have left. If giving you my kidney means you get to live, then take it. Take both of them if you need to. I don't care. You could die from the surgery. You're 62. The doctor said there are risks. I don't care about the risks. And I meant it. In that moment, nothing mattered except saving my son. You are my whole world, Brandon. Do you understand that I would give you anything? Everything. My kidney is yours. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. Thank you, he whispered against my hair. Thank you, Mom. I love you so much. I love you too, baby. More than you'll ever know. We stood there in the living room holding each other while snow fell outside the window, and for the first time in 5 years, my house didn't feel empty anymore. My son needed me, and I was going to save him. The next morning, Brandon was still asleep on the couch when I woke up at 6 a.m. I'd covered him with David's old Afghan, the one his mother had knitted for us as a wedding present. He looked so peaceful sleeping there, so young, like he was 12 years old again, sleeping in after a sleepover with his friends. I made coffee quietly, not wanting to wake him. Through the kitchen window, I watched the sun rise over the snow-covered neighborhood. It was going to be a beautiful day to save my son's life. Brandon woke up around 8. I heard him stirring in the living room, then the bathroom door closing. The shower ran for a long time. When he finally emerged, he looked a little better. Hair combed, face shaved. He'd borrowed one of David's old robes. It was too big on him. David had been a bigger man, but seeing my son in his father's robe made my heart ache in a good way. "I made breakfast," I said. "Scrambled eggs and toast, your favorite." "Mom, you didn't have to—" "Sit." I pointed at the kitchen table. "You're too skinny. You need to eat." He sat, and he ate. I watched him from across the table, nursing my coffee, memorizing every detail of his face. My son, my baby. How had I not noticed how sick he looked? Why hadn't he told me sooner? "I called Northwestern Memorial this morning," Brandon said between bites. "The transplant coordinator. I told her you agreed to be tested as a donor." "When can we go?" "Today if you're free. She has an opening at 2 p.m. "I'm free. I would have canceled a meeting with the president if I had to." "What do we need to bring?" "Just your ID, insurance card. They'll do blood work, run some tests, make sure you're healthy enough for surgery." He paused. "Mom, are you sure about this? Once we start this process, it's going to move fast. If you have any doubts—" "No doubts." I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "Brandon and I have never been more sure of anything in my life." He looked down at our joined hands. "I don't deserve you." "Stop that. You're my son. You deserve everything good in this world." We went to Northwestern Memorial Hospital that afternoon. The building loomed enormous and sterile, all glass and steel, and the smell of antiseptic. Brandon held my elbow as we walked through the automatic doors as if I were the sick one. The transplant coordinator's name was Dr. James Reynolds. He was in his 50s with a neatly trimmed beard and wire-rimmed glasses. His office was small but neat diplomas covering the walls. "Mrs. Hartford." He shook my hand. His grip was firm but not overwhelming. "Thank you for coming in. Your son explained the situation." "I want to help him." I looked at Brandon, who sat in the chair next to mine. "Whatever he needs." "That's wonderful. It's rare that we find such immediate family support." Dr. Reynolds pulled out a thick file folder. "I have Brandon's medical records here. Stage 4 CKD, elevated creatinine, low GFR. He's been undergoing dialysis at Rush University Medical Center for the past 6 months, but his numbers continue to decline." I didn't understand most of those words, but I understood decline. "How bad is it?" I asked. Dr. Reynolds looked at me over his glasses. "Without a transplant, Brandon has approximately 6 months, perhaps less. A successful kidney transplant could give him 20-30 more years. A normal life. 30 more years with my son. 30 more Christmases, birthdays, Sunday dinners." "Then let's do it," I said. "What do I need to do?" "First, we need to run some tests. Make sure you're a compatible donor." He pulled out a form. "Blood type, tissue matching, cross-match testing. We'll also need to verify that you're healthy enough for major surgery. You'll need chest x-rays, EKG, complete blood panel, kidney function tests." "How long does all that take?" "Usually a few weeks. But given Brandon's condition, we can fast-track this. If everything looks good, we could have you both in surgery within the month." "Within the month?" "My son could be saved within the month." "Let's do it." Dr. Reynolds smiled. "Excellent. Let me get the paperwork." He left the office. Brandon and I sat in silence for a moment. "You sure, Mom?" he asked quietly. "Stop asking me that." "Yes, I'm sure." "It's major surgery. You'll have a scar, recovery time, pain." "Brandon, I gave birth to you. I think I can handle a little surgery." He laughed. A real laugh. The first one I'd heard from him in years. Dr. Reynolds returned with a stack of papers. "Mrs. Hartford, I need you to review and sign these consent forms. They explain the risks of kidney donation, the surgical procedure, recovery expectations, and so on. Take your time reading through everything." He set the papers in front of me. There must have been 30 pages. "Mom," Brandon said, "why don't I go get us some coffee from the cafeteria? Give you time to read through everything." "That's a good idea," Dr. Reynolds said. "The cafeteria is on the 2nd floor. And Mrs. Hartford, if you have any questions, I'll be right outside." They both left. I was alone in the office with the stack of papers. I started reading, or trying to read. The words blurred together. Medical terminology I didn't understand. Risks, complications, mortality rates. Each form seemed more complicated than the last. My head started to ache. I flipped through the pages. So many pages. Consent forms, release forms, insurance authorization, living donor evaluation, nephrectomy risks, Post-operative care instructions. I reached a page that looked different from the others. The header said property transfer authorization and medical power of attorney, combined form. I frowned. That seemed strange. Why would a medical consent form need property transfer information? But then I remembered maybe this was about paying for the surgery. My insurance was good, but maybe there were additional costs. The house was paid off. If they needed me to use the house as collateral for Brandon's medical care, I'd do it. Whatever it took. I kept flipping pages. Each one had a little colored tab with an X showing where to sign. So many signatures. My hand started to cramp. Brandon came back with 2 coffees. How's it going? There's so many forms, I said. I know, right? Medical bureaucracy. It's insane. He set a coffee in front of me. But that's how they protect themselves. Liability and all that. I guess. I took a sip of coffee. It was sweet. Brandon remembered I liked cream and 2 sugars. Dr. Reynolds returned. How are we doing, Mrs. Hartford? Just finishing up. I flipped to the last page, signed my name one final time. Melissa Hartford, dated December 14th. My hand was shaking from signing so much. Excellent. Dr. Reynolds gathered the papers, placed them back in the folder. I'll get these processed right away. We should have your test results by the end of the week. That fast, for you, Mrs. Hartford, will make it fast. He smiled. Your son is lucky to have a mother like you. I looked at Brando. The tests came back 3 days later. I was sitting in the living room trying to read, but mostly just staring at the same page when my phone rang. Mrs. Hartford, this is Dr. Reynolds from Northwestern Memorial. My heart stopped. Yes. I have wonderful news. Your tests came back. You're a perfect match for your son. Perfect match. The words echoed in my head. That's wonderful. More than wonderful. It's rare to have such compatibility even between family members. Your blood type, tissue markers, antibody crossmatch, everything aligns perfectly. You're an ideal donor, Mrs. Hartford. When can we do the surgery? How does next week sound? Thursday, December 22nd, just before Christmas. It would be the best gift you could give your son. Christmas. Brandon and I would spend Christmas together. Our first real Christmas in 5 years. Thursday is perfect. Excellent. I'll have my office send over the pre-surgery instructions. You'll need to stop eating solid food 24 hours before the procedure. Nothing to eat or drink after midnight the night before. We'll need you at the hospital by 6 a.m. I'll be there. One more thing, Mrs. Hartford. Do you have someone who can drive you home after you're discharged? You'll need assistance for the first few weeks of recovery. I thought about that. Who did I have? David was gone. Brandon would be recovering from his own surgery. I didn't have any close friends left. Most of them had drifted away after David died, uncomfortable with my grief. My son can help me, I said. Actually, your son will be recovering as well. It would be better if you had someone else, a friend or relative. I'll figure it out. I would. Somehow, we hung up. I sat there for a moment, phone in my hand, heart pounding. December 22nd. 8 days away. In 8 days, I would save my son's life. I called Brandon immediately. Honey, Dr. Reynolds just called. We're a perfect match. That's amazing, Mom. He sounded genuinely excited. Happy. When's the surgery? Next Thursday, December 22nd. Silence on the other end. Brandon. Sorry, I'm overwhelmed. I can't believe this is really happening. You're really saving my life. Of course I am. You're my son. Mom. His voice cracked. Thank you. I know I haven't been the best son these past few years. I know I've been distant. But I want you to know, I love you so much. Tears streamed down my face. I love you too, baby. The week passed in a blur of preparations. Brandon moved back home temporarily, he said, just to help me get ready for surgery and to recover together afterward. Having him in the house again felt like a miracle, like God had heard my prayers and answered them. We fell into a routine. Breakfast together at the kitchen table. Brandon would make the coffee strong and black for him, cream and 2 sugars for me. We'd watch the morning news together. He'd help me with errands, drive me to my pre-surgery appointments, sit with me in waiting rooms. It felt like having my son back. The real Brandon, not the distant stranger who'd forgotten me for 5 years. The night before the surgery, I made his favorite meal, pot roast with carrots and potatoes, the way David used to make it. The recipe I'd learned from David's mother passed down through 3 generations of Hartford family dinners. Brandon came down to the kitchen as I was pulling the roast from the oven. "Mom, you didn't have to cook. You're supposed to be resting." "Nonsense. This might be my last home-cooked meal for a while. I'm going to enjoy it." I set the pot on the table. Besides, I wanted to make something special for our last dinner before everything changes. He sat down at the table. His spot, the same spot he'd sat in since he was 5 years old and tall enough to see over the table edge. I served the pot roast same as I'd done 1,000 times before. The ritual was comforting, normal, like all those Sunday dinners we used to have back when David was alive and Brandon was still mine. We ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Brandon set down his fork. "Mom, I need to tell you something." My heart clenched. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I need you to know something before tomorrow." He looked at me and there were tears in his eyes. "You're the best mother anyone could ask for. I know I haven't shown it. I know I've been a terrible son, but you never gave up on me. Even when I disappeared for months at a time, you kept calling, kept leaving voicemails, kept loving me." "Brandon." "No, let me finish. When Dad died, I should have been there for you. You lost your husband. You were alone in this house. And I abandoned you. I was so wrapped up in my own grief, my own life, that I forgot you were grieving too." I reached across the table and took his hand. "Grief makes people do strange things. I never blamed you. You should have." He squeezed my hand. "But that's who you are. You forgive. You love. You give without asking for anything in return. Tomorrow you're giving me your kidney. You're giving me your life. And I'll spend the rest of my days trying to be worthy of that gift." "You're already worthy. You're my son." We finished dinner. I cut 2 slices of apple pie, David's favorite dessert, and we ate them slowly, savoring every bite. After dinner, Brandon insisted on doing the dishes. I sat at the table and watched him, this tall man who used to be my little boy, standing at the sink with soap bubbles up to his elbows. "You know," I said, "when you were little, you used to stand on a stool to reach the sink. You'd insist on helping me wash dishes. You'd splash water everywhere and drop half the plates." He laughed. "I remember. Dad would come in and pretend to be mad, but he'd be laughing. He loved you so much, Brandon. He'd be so proud of you right now, fighting this illness, being so brave." Brandon's hands stilled in the dishwater. "I miss him." "Me too, honey. Every single day." After the dishes were done, we sat together in the living room. Brandon turned on the TV, some old Western movie, the kind David used to love. We didn't really watch it. We just sat there, mother and son, in the house that held all our memories. Around 10 p.m., I stood up. "I should get to bed. We have to be at the hospital at 6 a.m. Brandon stood too. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you scared?" I thought about that. Was I scared of surgery, of pain, of dying on the operating table? "No," I said honestly. "I'm not scared, because I know that tomorrow I'm going to save you, and that's all that matters." He hugged me, a real hug, the kind I hadn't gotten from him in years. I felt his heart beating against my chest, this heart that I'd listened to on ultrasounds before he was born, this heart that I'd kept beating all those years ago when he'd had pneumonia at age 3 and nearly died. "I love you, Mom," he whispered. "I love you too, sweetheart, more than all the stars in the sky." I went upstairs to bed. I lay there in the darkness, David's t-shirt soft against my skin, and I prayed. "David," I whispered into the empty room, "if you're up there, watch over us tomorrow. Watch over Brandon. He's all I have left of you. Please, God, let this surgery work. Let him live. I don't care what happens to me. Just let him live." I fell asleep clutching David's wedding ring, the one I wore on a chain around my neck, right next to my own. I dreamed of Brandon as a little boy running through the backyard with David chasing him, both of them laughing. In the dream, David looked at me and said, "Take care of our boy Mel. Promise me you'll always take care of him." "I promise," I said. "See?" And I meant it. The alarm went off at 4:30 a.m. I woke up groggy, disoriented. Then I remembered. Today was the day. Brandon was already awake. I heard him moving around downstairs. I got dressed slowly, comfortable clothes like the hospital had instructed. No jewelry, no makeup, no perfume. Just me, Melissa Hartford, about to give part of myself to save my son. Brandon drove us to Northwestern Memorial. The streets were empty at this hour, just streetlights reflecting off the snow. Neither of us spoke. What was there to say? At the hospital, a nurse met us at the entrance with a wheelchair for me. "I can walk," I protested. "Hospital policy, Mrs. Hartford. Save your strength." Brandon walked beside the wheelchair as the nurse pushed me through the maze of hallways. Everything smelled like antiseptic and floor wax. Too bright, too cold, too real. They took us to the surgical prep area, 2 curtained cubicles side by side. "Mrs. Hartford, you'll be in here. Mr. Hartford, you're next door." The nurse drew the curtain. "The surgical nurse will be with you in just a moment." I changed into the hospital gown. Thin, paper, humiliating. I sat on the bed and waited. A different nurse came in. Young, maybe 30. She smiled at me the kind of smile medical professionals give to patients they feel sorry for. "Mrs. Hartford, I'm Nurse Carol Andrews. I'll be prepping you for surgery." She started an IV in my left arm. I looked away. I'd never been good with needles. "Your son is very lucky to have a mother like you," she said as she taped down the IV line. "I'm lucky to have him." She gave me that smile again, the pitying one, but she didn't say anything else. Dr. Reynolds came in next. "Good morning, Mrs. Hartford. How are you feeling?" "Ready." "Excellent. The procedure will take about 4 hours. We'll make an incision here." He pointed to my left side. "And remove your left kidney through a minimally invasive laparoscopic procedure. You'll have several small incisions and one larger incision about 3 inches long. You'll wake up in recovery probably around noon. Any questions? Will I be able to see Brandon after? Once you're both stable, yes, but you'll each need time to recover separately first." "Okay." The anesthesiologist came next. Young man, probably in his 30s. He explained what would happen. Medication through the IV. Count backwards from 10. I'd be asleep before I reached 5. "Any last questions?" he asked. "Take care of my son," I said. "Please, he's all I have." "We'll take excellent care of both of you, Mrs. Hartford." Someone wheeled my bed out of the prep area. I heard Brandon's voice from the next cubicle. "Love you, Mom." "Love you too, baby." Then we were moving. Fluorescent lights passed overhead. 1, 2, 3, 4. The hallway seemed endless. The operating room was cold, bright, full of people in surgical masks and gowns. They transferred me to the operating table, strapped my arms down, placed a mask over my face. "Okay, Mrs. Hartford, we're going to start the medication now. I need you to count backwards from 10 for me." 10, 9, 8. I thought of Brandon, my baby, my son. 7, 6. I thought of David, waiting for me, somewhere. 5. I thought of all those voicemails, all those prayers, all those lonely dinners. 4. This is worth it. My son will live. Thrun, darkness. I woke up to the sound of machines beeping. For a moment I didn't know where I was. The ceiling above me was white and stained. Fluorescent lights buzzed. Everything smelled sharp and chemical like bleach mixed with metal. It burned my throat. Then the pain hit. It started as a dull ache in my left side, then exploded into fire like someone had pressed a poker directly against my ribs. I tried to move, but my body wouldn't cooperate. My arms felt like wet concrete. I turned my head slowly. To my right, a machine beeped in steady rhythm. Green lines danced across a black screen. An IV drip hung from a metal pole. To my left, a window. Outside, snow fell in thick flakes. Chicago in December. The world looked frozen and far away. I was in the ICU, Northwestern Memorial Hospital. It came back in pieces. The surgery, the consent forms, the anesthesiologist counting backwards, and Brandon, my son, holding my hand as they wheeled me in. I remembered his face, pale, eyes red, his hand squeezing mine. "You're saving my life, Mom," he'd whispered. I swallowed. My mouth tasted like metal. A thin blanket covered me, but I was cold. I looked down. Beneath the hospital gown, I could see the edge of a bandage. White gauze wrapped around my torso. Underneath, a 9-inch scar ran across my left side, the place where they'd taken my kidney for Brandon. I pressed the call button. My fingers shook. A minute later, the door opened. A woman in blue scrubs walked in. Older, maybe 50, with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back. Her name tag read, Carol Andrews, RN. Mrs. Hartford, she said softly. You're awake. How are you feeling? Like someone cut me open, I said. My voice came out rough. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. That's normal. You just came out of surgery yesterday afternoon. The pain will get better. Yesterday, I'd lost time, a whole night. Where's Brandon? I asked. Where's my son? Something flickered across her face. Just for a second. Then it was gone. Your son is recovering on another floor, Mrs. Hartford, she said. She checked the IV, adjusted the blanket. She wouldn't look at me. He's doing fine. Can I see him? Not yet. You need to rest. I nodded. That made sense. We'd both just had major surgery. Of course, they'd keep us separate for now. Brandon was okay. That was all that mattered. Nurse Carol checked my vitals, blood pressure, temperature, heart rate. She wrote everything down on a chart. Is my son really okay? I asked again. She paused. For just a moment, her hand stilled on the clipboard. Then she continued writing. Yes, Mrs. Hartford, your son is fine. But something in her voice made me cold. She left. I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to ignore the pain in my side. Brandon was okay. The surgery worked. He was going to live. So why did I feel like something was wrong? Let's continue. The first day after surgery blurred into the second. Doctors came and went, their faces interchangeable behind surgical masks. Nurses checked my vitals every few hours. Everyone smiled. Everyone said the same thing. Your son is doing fine, Mrs. Hartford. He's resting. But nobody would let me see him. I asked everyone who entered my room. The young doctor with tired eyes who checked my incision. The nurse who brought me water and helped me sit up. Even the orderly who emptied my trash can. Where is Brandon? When can I see my son? The answer never changed. Soon, Mrs. Hartford. Soon. But soon never came. The pain in my side became familiar. A dull throb that sharpened when I moved. By the second morning, they had me sitting up, then standing. A physical therapist with a clipboard and an overly cheerful voice told me to take 3 steps. I did. Each one felt like walking on broken glass. Excellent, Mrs. Hartford. You're doing great. I didn't feel great. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck, but I didn't care about the pain. I only wanted to see my son. That afternoon, they moved me out of the ICU to a regular room on the 4th floor. Smaller, quieter. A single bed by the window. The view hadn't changed, snow-gray sky, a city wrapped in winter. Nurse Carol helped me into a chair by the window. Her hands were gentle, but her face carried that same troubled look, like she knew something she didn't want to say. Nurse Carol, I asked, when can I see Brandon? She hesitated. Her eyes dropped to her hands where they fussed with the IV line. Your son will visit you tomorrow, Mrs. Hartford. Tomorrow. Relief loosened something in my chest. Thank you, I said. She nodded but didn't smile. She turned toward the door, paused. For a moment I thought she would say something. Warn me. Explain that look in her eyes. She didn't. She just left. I sat by the window as evening fell, watching Chicago's lights flicker on. Christmas lights blinked in the distance. Red, green, gold. The world was preparing for the holidays, families gathering, children laughing, love and warmth and togetherness. Tomorrow I would see my son. Tomorrow I would hold him and tell him I loved him. Tell him it was all worth it. I smiled for the first time since waking up. Tomorrow. I had no idea tomorrow would destroy everything. December 25th. Christmas Day. I woke to pale sunlight streaming through the hospital window. Christmas morning. My first Christmas without David, but my first real Christmas with Brandon in 5 years. Sort of. We were both in hospital beds recovering from surgery that would give him 30 more years of life. Best Christmas present I could ask for. The nurses brought breakfast scrambled eggs that tasted like cardboard toast orange juice. I couldn't eat. My stomach was tied in knots. Not from pain, from anticipation. Today I would see Brandon. I sat in the chair by the window, hands folded in my lap. I'd practiced what I would say, how I would tell him the pain didn't matter, that I would do it again in a heartbeat, because that's what mothers do. The clock on the wall ticked past 10, then 11, then noon. Finally, just after 12:30, there was a knock on my door. My heart leaped. Come in. The door opened. Brandon walked in. For a second, one beautiful, perfect second, my heart lifted. I tried to stand reaching for him. Brandon, but then I saw. He wasn't wearing a hospital gown. He was wearing a crisp black suit. Tailored, expensive. His hair was styled with gel. His shoes were polished to a shine. He looked like he was heading to a business meeting. And there was no bandage, no sign of surgery, no IV pole, no weakness in his movements. He walked into my hospital room like a man who'd never been sick a day in his life. "Where's your bandage?" The words came out before I could stop them. "Brandon, where's your incision?" He didn't answer, just stood in the doorway, hands in the pockets of that expensive suit, and looked at me with eyes that were completely empty. Then I saw them. 2 people stepped into the room behind him. A woman in a dark suit, late 30s, carrying a black leather briefcase. Professional. Cold. Her hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. And a younger woman with blonde hair extensions and fake eyelashes scrolling on her phone like she was bored. She wore a tight dress designer I could tell even from across the room, and heels so high I didn't know how she walked in them. "Brandon," I said slowly, my voice shaking. "Who are these people?" The woman in the suit stepped forward. Her smile was professional, sharp, the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. "Mrs. Hartford, my name is Claire Montgomery. I'm your son's attorney." Attorney. The word hit me like a slap. "Attorney?" I repeated. Why does Brandon need an attorney?" Claire reached into her briefcase and pulled out a large manila envelope. She placed it on the tray table beside my bed. The envelope was thick, official looking. "This is an eviction notice, Mrs. Hartford." The room tilted. "What, you signed ownership of your home at 428 Lincoln Park over to your son before the surgery," Claire said calmly, like she was reading a grocery list. "The property now belongs to him. This notice informs you that you have 30 days to vacate the premises." I couldn't breathe. The words didn't make sense. They were English, but they might as well have been a foreign language. "No," I whispered. "Those were medical consent forms. For the surgery. I didn't sign anything about my house." "Read the fine print, Mom," Brandon said. His voice, cold, flat, like he was talking to a stranger, not his mother, not the woman who'd just given him her kidney. I looked at him, really looked at him, at his face that showed no emotion, at his body that showed no sign of surgery. "Brandon, what's happening? I don't understand." He tilted his head slightly, like I was an interesting puzzle he was trying to figure out. "You're being moved to Sunrise Senior Living," he said. "It's a care facility on the north side. I've already paid for 6 months. They have a room ready for you." A care facility. A nursing home. He was putting me in a nursing home. "But, I just gave you my kidney," I said. My voice sounded small, childlike. "I saved your life." "About that." Brandon pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, then held it up so I could see. "This is my medical record from Rush University Medical Center. See no dialysis appointments, no kidney disease, no treatments." I stared at the screen, saw my son's name, saw patient status healthy in bold letters. "I don't understand," I whispered. The blonde woman, the one who'd been ignoring us to stare at her phone, finally looked up. She examined her fingernails' cherry red acrylics that looked like claws. "Oh my God, Brandon, can we go? This is taking forever. We have that party at Jade's tonight." "In a minute, Amber." Brandon put his phone away. He looked at me again. "Mom, do you want to know the truth?" "Please," I was begging, actually begging. "Please tell me what's happening." I was never sick. The words hung in the air. I heard them. My brain processed them. But they didn't make sense. I was never sick. He spoke slowly like I was stupid. "I don't have kidney disease. I never needed dialysis. I never needed a transplant. I was never dying, Mom." The room spun. I gripped the armrests of the chair so hard my knuckles went white. "But the tests, Dr. Reynolds, the medical records, fake," Brandon said simply. "All of it. The doctor was paid. The records were forged. The whole thing was staged." I couldn't process this. It was too big, too impossible. "Then where?" My voice broke. "Where is my kidney?" Brandon smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who just won a game. "In someone else. Some rich old guy who actually needed one. His family paid $500,000 for it. Cash. $500,000. $500,000. For my kidney." "You sold it." I couldn't breathe. You sold my kidney. Technically, they thought they were paying for mine. The donor was supposed to be me, young, healthy, altruistic son donating to a stranger out of the goodness of his heart. Very touching story. He shrugged. But I'm not about to let someone cut me open, so I used yours instead. I felt something break inside me. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet crack like ice breaking under weight. Why? The word came out as barely a whisper. Why would you do this to me? Because I could. 3 words. 3 simple words that destroyed 34 years of being a mother. Because I could. Not because I needed the money. Not because I was desperate. Not even because I hate you. Just because I could. Brandon, my voice was shaking so badly I could barely speak. I'm your mother. I carried you for 9 months. I raised you. I loved you. I gave you everything. And now you've given me your house and $500,000, he interrupted. So thanks for that. Amber sighed loudly. Brandon, seriously, we need to go. I told Jade we'd be there by 3. Right. Brandon adjusted his cufflinks. Actual cufflinks gold and probably expensive. Mom, the moving company will pack up your stuff. Take whatever fits in your room at sunrise. The rest we're donating or selling. Brandon, please. Oh, and one more thing. He pulled an envelope from his inside jacket pocket. This is the final mortgage statement. Just so you know, the house is paid off. $800,000 free and clear. Should sell pretty quickly in Lincoln Park. He tossed the envelope on my lap like it was trash. Claire cleared her throat. Mrs. Hartford, I suggest you review the documents. If you have any questions, you can reach me at this number. She placed a business card on top of the envelope. But I should inform you that everything was done legally. You signed the property transfer authorization forms. It's all binding. I couldn't speak, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but sit there and watch my son, my baby, my Brandon destroy me. He turned to leave. Amber was already halfway out the door back to scrolling on her phone. Wait, I said. My voice was so small. Brandon, wait. Please. He paused, didn't turn around, just stood there with his back to me. Was any of it real? I asked. These past 2 weeks, you coming home, the dinners, the talks, telling me you loved me. Was any of it real? He looked back over his shoulder. Does it matter? Then he was gone. Claire snapped her briefcase shut and followed him out. I sat alone in that hospital room staring at the door they'd just walked through, at the manila envelope on my lap, at the business card with Claire Montgomery's name embossed in gold. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't open the envelope, so I just sat there, holding it, while outside the window Chicago celebrated Christmas, families together, love, joy, peace, and I had nothing but a scar on my side and a hole where my son used to be. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes, hours. Time had stopped meaning anything. The envelope sat on my lap, unopened. I couldn't make my hands work. Couldn't make any part of me work. Brandon had never been sick. I'd given him my kidney for nothing. No, not for nothing. For $500,000 that I would never see. For my house that I would never live in again. For a son who looked at me and said, because I could. The door burst open. I didn't look up. Probably another nurse coming to check my blood pressure, or adjust my IV, or tell me everything would be okay when we both knew it wouldn't. Mrs. Hartford. The voice was sharp, angry, female. I looked up. A woman stood in the doorway. She was wearing a white coat over blue scrubs, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She was maybe in her late 40s with sharp features and eyes that blazed with fury. But she wasn't looking at me with that fury. She was looking past me, at someone in the hallway. Stop right there, she said. I turned. Brandon was at the elevator, Claire and Amber beside him. He'd pressed the button, waiting to leave, to walk away from what he'd just done. The woman in the white coat strode past my room. I struggled to my feet, ignoring the screaming pain in my side, and followed her to the doorway. Excuse me, Brandon said. Who are you? I'm Dr. Sarah Bennett. She didn't raise her voice, but something in her tone made everyone in the hallway stop and stare. Head of transplant surgery at this hospital, and I know exactly what you did. Brandon's face went pale, just slightly, just enough that I saw it. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. Don't you, doctor? Bennett crossed her arms. She looked calm, but I could see her hands were clenched into fists. Maybe we should discuss this in private. Or would you prefer I explain in front of these witnesses how you committed organ trafficking? The hallway went silent. Claire stepped forward. Dr. Bennett, I'm Mr. Hartford's attorney. I suggest you be quiet, Dr. Bennett said coldly. Unless you want to be disbarred for knowingly participating in felony fraud. Claire's mouth snapped shut. Organ trafficking is a strong accusation, Brandon said. His voice was steady, but I saw a bead of sweat on his temple. I'm sure there's just some confusion. There's no confusion. Dr. Bennett pulled out her phone, tapped the screen. Mr. Hartford was never a patient at this hospital, never had blood work done here, never had dialysis, never had kidney disease. She showed him the screen. I have your complete medical history from your actual physician. Dr. Martin Chen at Oak Street Family Practice. According to him, you're healthy as a horse. That doesn't prove the kidney that was harvested from Melissa Hartford yesterday was transplanted into Jonathan Whitmore, a 68-year-old businessman who is actually dying of kidney failure. Dr. Bennett's voice was ice. His family paid $500,000 for an anonymous organ donation. They were told the donor was you, a young man willing to help a stranger. Noble, generous, completely false. Amber made a small sound. Brandon shot her a look that said, "Shut up." You can't prove any of that, Brandon said. Can't I? Dr. Bennett scrolled on her phone. I have emails between you and someone calling themselves MedMatch. I have wire transfer records showing $500,000 deposited into your account 2 days ago. I have text messages between you and Amber Lee discussing how to get the old lady to sign everything. Shall I continue? The color drained from Brandon's face completely now. How did you... You're Dr. James Reynolds. Dr. Bennett smiled, but there was no warmth in it. He was arrested this morning. Turns out he's been running these schemes for years. When the FBI picked him up, he gave up everything, including you. FBI. The word echoed down the hallway. Now, Dr. Bennett said, I called the Chicago Police Department before I came up here. They should be arriving any of the elevator dinged. The doors opened. 2 police officers stepped out. 1 woman, 1 man, both in uniform, both looking directly at Brandon. Brandon Hartford, the female officer said. Brandon didn't answer. He was frozen, staring at the officers like they were a firing squad. Mr. Hartford, the male officer said, I'm Officer Davis. This is Officer Martinez. We need you to come with us. On what charges? Claire said. Her voice was shaky now. Fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy to commit illegal organ trafficking, falsification of medical documents. Officer Martinez pulled out handcuffs. Sir, turn around and place your hands behind your back. Wait, Brandon said. Wait, I can explain. You have the right to remain silent, Officer Davis began. Mom, Brandon suddenly looked at me, actually looked at me. Mom, tell them I'm your son. Tell them you wanted to help me. I stood in the doorway of my hospital room, my hand pressed against the doorframe to keep myself upright, my side screaming with pain. I looked at my son, at this man who'd lied to me, used me, sold part of my body for money. Mrs. Hartford, Officer Martinez said gently, do you want to press charges? I looked at Brandon, really looked at him, tried to find my little boy somewhere in that face. The child who'd climbed onto my lap and said, I love you, Mommy. The teenager who'd cried when he didn't make the baseball team and I'd held him while he sobbed. The young man who'd stood at his father's grave and gripped my hand like it was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. Was that person ever real? Or had I imagined him, created a son who never existed? Ma'am, Officer Martinez said again. Yes, I whispered. Yes, I want to press charges. Brandon's face crumbled. Mom, no. Please, I'm your son. No, I said. My voice was stronger now. You stopped being my son the day you decided I was worth more in pieces than whole. Officer Davis put Brandon's hands behind his back. The sound of the handcuffs clicking shut was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. Brandon Hartford, Officer Martinez said you're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. They led him away. He looked back at me once. Just once. His face was pleading, desperate. I turned away. walked back into my hospital room, sat down in the chair by the window, and I didn't look back. I heard the elevator ding, heard it close, heard the sound of my son being taken away, and I felt nothing, just empty. Dr. Bennett came into my room a few minutes later. She knocked first softly, then entered when I didn't respond. Mrs. Hartford. She pulled up a chair and sat beside me. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. How long have you known? My voice sounded like it was coming from very far away. Since this morning. I was reviewing surgical records routine post-op check and something didn't add up. Your son had no medical history with us, no previous appointments, no referrals. So I started digging. She paused. I found James Reynolds' connection. He's not affiliated with Northwestern. He's a private practitioner who lost his license in Wisconsin 5 years ago for insurance fraud. He's been operating under the radar setting up these fake transplant scenarios. How many? I asked. You're the third victim we know of. The FBI is investigating others. 3 people, 3 families destroyed by this man, by my son. The kidney I gave, I said slowly, it went to someone named Jonathan Whitmore. Yes, a good man, a real patient who actually needed a kidney. His family was desperate. They'd been on the transplant list for 2 years. When they were approached about a private donation, they jumped at it. They had no idea it was stolen. Stolen. My kidney was stolen. What happens now? I asked. Your son will be prosecuted. The evidence is overwhelming. Dr. Reynolds is cooperating with the FBI, which means he's giving up everyone involved. Brandon, Amber Lee, the middleman who connected them to the Whitmore family. Everyone. And me. Dr. Bennett took my hand. Hers was warm. Mine was ice cold. You're a victim, Mrs. Hartford, not a criminal. But you'll need to testify. Tell the court what happened. How Brandon manipulated you. The house, I said. He took my house. The property transfer will be challenged. Any document signed under false pretenses is voidable. You'll get your house back. How long? A few months, maybe longer. The legal process is slow. Where do I go in the meantime? Dr. Bennett was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that broke me all over again. I don't know. I started to cry. Not loud dramatic sobs, just silent tears that ran down my face and wouldn't stop. I don't have anyone, I whispered. David's dead. Brandon's... I don't even know what Brandon is. I don't have friends. I don't have family. I'm 62 years old and I'm completely alone. You're not alone. Dr. Bennett squeezed my hand. I'm here. The hospital social worker will help find you temporary housing. And... She hesitated. There's something else you should know. I looked at her through my tears. Jonathan Whitmore, the man who received your kidney, he wants to meet you. Why? Because he didn't know the truth. His family thought they were paying for an altruistic donation. When he found out what really happened, he was horrified. He wants to apologize. To help if you'll let him. Help from a stranger, because my own son had destroyed me. I don't want his pity, I said. It's not pity. It's gratitude. You saved his life, Mrs. Hartford, whether you meant to or not. He wants you to know that your sacrifice mattered. I looked out the window. Snow was still falling. Christmas lights still blinking. The world continued on like my life hadn't just shattered into a million pieces. Okay, I said finally. I'll meet him. Dr. Bennett stood. Get some rest, Mrs. Hartford. I'll check on you tomorrow. She left. I sat alone in the gathering darkness, watching snow fall on Chicago, and wondered how I would survive this. My son had stolen my kidney, my house, my dignity, but he hadn't stolen everything. I was still breathing, still here, still alive. And somewhere in this city, a man named Jonathan Whitmore was alive because of me. Maybe that had to be enough. They kept me in the hospital for 3 more days. Dr. Bennett said it was normal recovery time for kidney donation, but I think she was also worried about discharging me to nowhere. On the 2nd day, Detective Raymond Cooper came to take my statement. He was in his early 50s with gray hair and kind eyes that had seen too much. Mrs. Hartford, I need you to walk me through everything, from the beginning. So I did. I told him about Brandon showing up that snowy night, about the fake medical records, about signing papers I didn't fully read because I trusted my son, about waking up from surgery and not being able to see him. Detective Cooper took notes. Lots of notes. You said you were in Dr. Reynolds' office when you signed the property transfer, he asked. Yes. He left me alone with a stack of papers. Brandon went to get coffee. I was by myself trying to read through all this medical terminology, and then there was this one form that looked different, but I thought it was for insurance or collateral or something. Did Brandon tell you it was for insurance? I thought about that. No, he didn't explain it at all. He just said to sign where the X's were. And you didn't read it carefully. No, I felt ashamed. Stupid. I trusted him. He was my son. Detective Cooper's face softened. Mrs. Hartford, you're not the first person to be defrauded by family, and you won't be the last. This is not your fault, but it felt like my fault, for being too trusting, too desperate for my son's love, too willing to believe he cared about me. What else can you tell me about Brandon's girlfriend, Amber Lee? Cooper asked. I only met her that one time, in the hospital. She seemed young, focused on her phone. She kept saying they had to leave, that they had a party to go to. Did Brandon ever mention her before? No, I didn't even know he had a girlfriend. Cooper made another note. We believe Amber was instrumental in planning this fraud. We've subpoenaed her phone records, her bank accounts, her social media. She's been living a very expensive lifestyle lately. Designer clothes, luxury vacations, expensive restaurants, all funded by your kidney, Mrs. Hartford. My kidney had bought some girls' designer purses. My pain had paid for her parties. There's something else you should know, Cooper said. Brandon has significant gambling debts. He owes $300,000 to a man named Victor Lang, an illegal bookmaker. Lang has been pressuring Brandon for months, threatening him. So that was why. Not because Brandon was evil necessarily, because he was desperate and weak and chose the easy way out. He chose to use me. Does that make it better or worse? I asked. That he had a reason? It doesn't make it right, Cooper said. Having a reason doesn't excuse what he did. On the third day, a woman from the hospital social services came to see me. Her name was Patricia. She was middle-aged, efficient, wearing a cardigan with cat pins on it. Mrs. Hartford, we need to discuss your discharge plan. Where will you be staying when you leave the hospital? I don't know. She consulted her tablet. Your home is currently tied up in legal proceedings. Do you have family friends? Anyone who can take you in temporarily? No. I see. More tapping on the tablet. There are some transitional housing options. Senior living facilities that accept short-term residents. Or we have a program that partners with extended stay hotels. Mrs. Hartford, we both turned. A man stood in the doorway. Tall, thin, distinguished-looking, maybe late 60s. He wore an expensive suit and leaned slightly on a wooden cane. Yes, I said. My name is Walter Griffin. I work for Jonathan Whitmore. May I come in? Patricia stood. Mrs. Hartford, I'll leave my information with the nurses' station. Please call me when you've made a decision about housing. She left. Walter came in, moving slowly, carefully, like every step required thought. Mr. Whitmore would very much like to meet you, he said, if you're willing. Now, if you're feeling up to it. He's downstairs. He was discharged 2 days ago, but came back specifically to see you. I looked down at myself. Hospital gown, messy hair, no makeup, a scar hidden under bandages. I'm not exactly presentable, he said. You're perfect, Walter said gently. Mr. Whitmore doesn't care about that. He just wants to thank you. So I said yes. Walter went to get him. I sat in the chair by the window and waited. 5 minutes later, there was a knock. Mrs. Hartford, may I come in? Yes. The door opened. Jonathan Whitmore walked in, and I understood immediately why his family had been so desperate to save him. He had kind eyes. Not just kind. Warm. Genuine. The kind of eyes that smiled even when his mouth didn't. He was tall, well-dressed, moving slowly like someone who'd just been through major surgery. But his color was good. His posture straight. He looked like a man who'd been given a second chance at life. Because of my kidney. Mrs. Hartford. He stopped a respectful distance away. Thank you for seeing me. I know this must be incredibly difficult. Mr. Whitmore. Please call me Jonathan. He gestured to the chair. May I sit? Of course. He lowered himself carefully into the chair. Walter stood by the door, silent, watchful. I don't know where to begin, Jonathan said. I've been practicing what to say for 2 days and nothing seems adequate. You don't have to say anything. Yes, I do. He looked at me directly. Mrs. Hartford Melissa, if I may, I thought I was receiving a kidney from your son, a young man who wanted to help a stranger. My family paid for what we believed was an altruistic donation. We had no idea the truth. I know. When Dr. Bennett told me what really happened, he shook his head. I was horrified, sickened. I wanted to refuse the kidney return it somehow, but of course that's not how it works. You were dying, I said. You needed it. That doesn't make it right. His voice was firm. You were lied to, manipulated, abused by your own son, and now I'm alive because of your pain. We sat in silence for a moment. Are you angry at me? He asked quietly. Was I angry at him? At this man who'd done nothing wrong, who'd believed he was receiving a gift, not stolen property? No, I said. I'm not angry at you. Then what are you feeling? What was I feeling? Empty, broken, lost, confused, betrayed. I don't know, I admitted. Jonathan nodded slowly. I understand. Or I'm trying to. I can't imagine what you're going through. He paused. But I want you to know something. You saved my life. Whether you intended to or not, whether you knew me or not, you saved my life. I have 3 grandchildren who still have their grandfather because of you. I have years ahead of me because of you. That's not nothing, Melissa. That matters. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I didn't do it for you, I whispered. I did it for him, for Brandon, and he never needed it. It was all a lie. But I needed it. Jonathan's voice was gentle. And now I'm here. I'm alive. That's not a lie. That's real. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. I know you're going through legal battles to recover your home. I know you have nowhere to go when you're discharged. So I'm making you an offer, and I want you to know there are no strings attached. No expectations. Just gratitude. He held out the envelope. I took it with shaking hands. Opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper, an address, a phone number. My home is very large, Jonathan said. Too large for 1 man and 3 children who visit on weekends. I have a guest suite on the 1st floor, private entrance, full amenities. It's yours for as long as you need it. I stared at the paper. I can't accept this. Why not? Because it's charity. Because I don't know you. Because you think you don't deserve help. Jonathan's voice was kind but firm. Melissa, you just had major surgery. You've lost your home. Your son betrayed you in the worst possible way. You need time to heal. Time to figure out your next steps. Let me give you that time. I can't pay you rent. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to accept a gift from someone whose life you saved, whether you meant to or not. I looked at the address, 2840 Lakeshore Drive. Think about it, Jonathan said. He stood slowly, using the chair arm for support. The offer stands. When you're ready to be discharged, call that number. Walter will come get you. No pressure, no expectations. Just a place to rest while you recover. He walked to the door, then paused. Melissa, one more thing. Yes, you deserve better than what your son did to you. You deserve a family that values you. I hope you'll let me and my grandchildren try to be that family. Not as a replacement for what you lost, but as something new, something good. Then he was gone. I sat holding the envelope, staring at the address, and for the first time since waking up from surgery, I felt something other than despair. I felt possibility. If you're just joining us, go back and watch parts 1 and 2 first. This story will only make sense if you understand the full journey. Let's finish this. I was discharged from the hospital on December 29th, 4 days after Christmas. 4 days after my world shattered. Dr. Bennett came to check on me one last time. Your incision is healing well. Keep it clean and dry. No heavy lifting for 6 weeks. Any pain, call me immediately. Thank you, Dr. Bennett, for everything. She squeezed my hand. You're stronger than you know, Melissa. Remember that. Nurse Carol helped me get dressed. Real clothes, not a hospital gown. Soft pants with an elastic waist that wouldn't press on my incision. A loose sweater, my winter coat. Where are you headed, Mrs. Hartford? Carol asked as she adjusted my collar. I'm not sure yet. But I was lying. I'd called the number Jonathan gave me. Walter was coming to pick me up at 10 a.m. I was going to 2840 Lakeshore Drive. At exactly 10, Walter appeared in the doorway with a wheelchair. "Hospital policy," he said with a small smile, "even though you can walk just fine." He wheeled me down to the main entrance. A black car waited at the curb. Not a limousine, nothing flashy, just a nice sedan. Walter helped me into the back seat, careful not to jostle my side. "Comfortable?" he asked. "Yes, thank you." We drove through Chicago. The city looked different now. Same snow-covered streets, same buildings, same Christmas decorations coming down from storefronts. But I was seeing it with new eyes. The eyes of someone who'd lost everything and was starting over. We turned onto Lakeshore Drive. The frozen expanse of Lake Michigan stretched to our right, gray and endless. Walter pulled up to a 3-story brick house with white columns and a semicircular driveway. "We're here," he said. The house was beautiful. Not a mansion, but substantial. Elegant. The kind of home that spoke of old money and good taste. Snow covered the front lawn and lights glowed warm in the windows. Walter came around to help me out of the car. Each movement sent a spike of pain through my side, but I gritted my teeth and didn't complain. The front door opened before we reached it. Jonathan stood there wearing casual clothes, slacks, and a sweater. He looked better than he had in the hospital. Color in his face. Strength in his posture. "Melissa, welcome home." Home! The word made my throat tight. "Thank you for having me," I managed to say. "Come in, you must be exhausted." The inside of the house was even more beautiful than the outside. Hardwood floors, crown molding, a staircase with a polished banister. But it didn't feel cold or showy. It felt lived in. Comfortable. Family photos on the walls. Children's artwork on the refrigerator visible through the kitchen doorway. "Your suite is this way," Jonathan said, leading me down a hallway off the main entrance. "I thought you'd prefer the first floor. No stairs to navigate while you're recovering." He opened a door. The room was perfect. A large bedroom with a queen-sized bed covered in a soft blue quilt. A private bathroom with grab bars installed by the toilet and shower. A small sitting area with a comfortable chair and a window overlooking the garden. Everything I could need. "The kitchen is always open," Jonathan said. "Help yourself to anything. Walter does the grocery shopping on Thursdays. Just let him know if there's anything special you want." "This is too much," I whispered. "It's not enough." Jonathan's voice was firm but kind. "You saved my life, Melissa. The very least I can do is give you a safe place to heal." He left me alone to rest. I sat on the edge of the bed, so much softer than the hospital bed, and looked around at this beautiful room that a stranger had given me because my son had destroyed me. And I cried. Not from sadness this time. From overwhelming gratitude. From the strange mercy of a world that could be so cruel and so kind at the same time. I slept for 14 hours straight. When I woke up, sunlight was streaming through the window, and I could hear children's voices somewhere in the house. Children. I got up slowly, carefully, and made my way to the bathroom. My reflection in the mirror shocked me. I looked 10 years older than I had 2 weeks ago. Hollow cheeks, dark circles, gray hair that needed washing. But I was alive. I cleaned up as best I could, changed into fresh clothes, and ventured out of my room. The children's voices were coming from the kitchen. I followed the sound. 3 children sat at the kitchen table eating pancakes. 2 girls and a boy. The oldest looked about 11 with long brown hair and a ponytail. The middle child was a boy maybe 9 with serious eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. The youngest was a girl 7 at most with pigtails and a gap-toothed smile. They all looked up when I walked in. "Hello," I said nervously. "Grandpa," the youngest shouted. "The lady's awake." Jonathan appeared from what looked like a pantry, carrying a bottle of syrup. "Ah, Melissa. Good morning. Come meet my grandchildren." He gestured to each child in turn. "This is Emma, Noah, and Sophie." "Hello," Emma said politely. Noah gave a small wave. Sophie bounced in her chair. "Are you the lady who gave Grandpa his kidney?" "Sophie," Emma hissed. "It's okay," I said. I moved to the table slowly. "Yes, I'm that lady." Sophie's eyes went wide. "Does it hurt when they take it out?" "Sophie, don't be rude," Noah said. "I'm not being rude, I'm being curious." "A little," I told Sophie honestly, "but it's getting better." Do you want pancakes? Jonathan asked. I make them from scratch, my late wife's recipe. I don't want to intrude on your family time. You're not intruding. He pulled out a chair. Sit, please. So I sat. Jonathan put a plate of pancakes in front of me. They were perfect, golden brown, still warm. I took a bite and nearly cried again. I couldn't remember the last time someone had cooked for me. These are delicious, I said. Grandpa makes the best pancakes in the world, Sophie announced. Even better than restaurants. That's high praise, I said. Emma was watching me carefully. Mrs. Hartford, can I ask you something? Of course, and please call me Melissa. Why did you give your kidney to someone you didn't know? The question stopped me. I set down my fork. I didn't mean to, I said honestly. I thought I was giving it to my son, to save his life. I didn't know. I trailed off. How do you explain to children that your own child betrayed you? Grandpa told us, Noah said quietly, about what your son did. That's really messed up. Noah language, Jonathan said mildly. Sorry, but it is. Yes, I agreed. It is. Sophie reached across the table and patted my hand with her small, sticky one. It's okay, Miss Melissa. You can have our grandpa now. We'll share. Something in my chest broke open. This 7-year-old child offering to share her grandfather with a stranger because she understood loss. Thank you, sweetheart, I whispered. After breakfast, the children went to play in the den. I helped Jonathan clear the table, moving slowly because of my incision. They're wonderful children, I said. They are. Their mother, my daughter, passed away 3 years ago. Car accident. Their father couldn't handle it. He left, just walked away from them. Jonathan's voice was steady, but I heard the pain underneath. So they live with me now. I'm so sorry. We manage, more than manage. We're happy. He dried a plate. Emma is the responsible one, takes care of her siblings like a little mother. Noah is the quiet thinker, loves books and puzzles, and Sophie is pure joy. She reminds me every day that there's still good in the world. You're lucky to have them. They're lucky to have each other. Family isn't always blood, Melissa. Sometimes it's the people who show up and stay. I thought about that. About Brandon, who had my blood but not my heart. About these 3 children who shared nothing with me but were willing to share their grandfather. Would you like to help me with something? Jonathan asked. What? Emma's struggling with her math homework. Fractions. I'm terrible at math. And I understand you were a teacher. Elementary school. For 30 years. Perfect. She could use some help. So I spent the afternoon sitting at the kitchen table with Emma working through fraction problems. It felt good to be useful. To use my brain for something other than replaying my son's betrayal. Emma was sharp, quick to understand once concepts were explained clearly. You're really good at this, she said as she solved a particularly tricky problem. You're a very bright student. Can you help me again tomorrow? If your grandfather doesn't mind. I don't mind at all, Jonathan said from across the room where he was helping Noah with a jigsaw puzzle. That night at dinner pot roast that Walter had prepared, I sat at the table with Jonathan and his 3 grandchildren and felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt like part of a family. 2 weeks into January, Detective Cooper came to visit me at Jonathan's house. He called ahead and Jonathan offered to stay while we talked, but I told him I'd be fine. Cooper sat in the living room, his coat dusted with snow. Mrs. Hartford, I have some updates on your case. Please call me Melissa. Melissa, first the good news. The property transfer documents have been declared invalid. They were signed under false pretenses and fraudulent circumstances. Your house will be returned to you within the month. Relief flooded through me. Really? Really? Brandon will be required to vacate immediately. Anything he removed from the property must be returned or he'll face additional theft charges. My house. I was getting my house back. What about the money? I asked. Cooper's expression darkened. That's more complicated. Brandon spent most of it. $300,000 went to Victor Lang to pay off gambling debts. Another $100,000 was spent on luxury purchases, cars, jewelry, vacations. The remaining $100,000 has been frozen in his accounts. You'll get that back, plus the court will order restitution, but recovering the rest will take time. Victor Lang is facing separate charges and claims he didn't know the money was illegal. It'll be tied up in legal battles for months, maybe years. So I won't see most of it. Probably not. I'm sorry. I nodded. I'd expected as much. What about Brandon? He's being held without bail. The prosecutor is building a case. Multiple charges, elder abuse fraud conspiracy to commit organ trafficking, falsification of documents. With Dr. Reynolds cooperating and the evidence we have, it's a strong case. When's the trial? Preliminary hearing is next month. Full trial probably won't start until March or April. You'll need to testify. The thought of seeing Brandon again, of sitting in a courtroom and telling strangers what he'd done, made me feel sick. I'll testify, I said. There's something else. Cooper pulled out his phone, showed me a photo. Do you know this man? I looked at the picture. Middle-aged, heavy-set, wearing expensive clothes. Cold eyes. No. Who is he? Victor Lang, the bookie Brandon owed money to. We've been investigating him for months. Turns out he's connected to several other cases like yours. He finds desperate people who owe him money, and suggests ways to pay him back. Usually illegal ways. Organ trafficking, identity theft, insurance fraud. He suggested this to Brandon. We think so. We found emails between them discussing alternative payment methods. Brandon's lawyer will probably try to claim he was coerced, that Lang threatened him. But here's the thing, Brandon didn't have to go after you. He had other options. He could have declared bankruptcy. Could have gone to the police. He chose to use you instead. Chose. That word again. Amber Lee, Cooper continued, has agreed to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence. She's confirming that Brandon planned this for months, that he deliberately reconnected with you, gained your trust, and manipulated you into signing those papers. How long will he go to prison? If convicted on all charges, 10 to 15 years minimum, possibly more. 10 to 15 years. Brandon would be almost 50 when he got out. How do you feel about that? Cooper asked gently. I don't know, I admitted. He's still my son. Part of me wants him to be punished. Part of me just wants him to get help. To understand what he did was wrong. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. After Cooper left, I sat in Jonathan's living room for a long time watching snow fall outside the window. Emma came in carrying a book. Miss Melissa, are you okay? Yes, sweetheart. Just thinking. About your son. How did you know? She sat next to me on the couch. Grandpa said a policeman came. I figured it was about him. You're very observant. My mom used to say that. Emma was quiet for a moment. Do you miss him? Your son. I miss who I thought he was. Does that make sense? I think so. I miss my mom, but sometimes I'm mad at my dad for leaving. Can you miss someone and be mad at them at the same time? Yes, they said. You absolutely can. She leaned against me, carefully mindful of my healing incision. I put my arm around her. I'm glad you're here, Miss Melissa, she said. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. March came cold and gray. The trial date arrived March 15th. Jonathan offered to come with me. So did Walter, but I went alone. This was something I needed to face by myself. The Cook County Courthouse was massive, imposing. I walked through the metal detectors, took the elevator to the 4th floor, and found courtroom 4B. The gallery was already filling up. I saw Detective Cooper, Dr. Bennett, Nurse Carol, people I barely knew who'd come to support me. And there at the defense table was Brandon. He looked different, thinner, paler. His hair was longer, unkempt. He wore an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. When I walked in, he looked up. Our eyes met. I felt nothing. No anger, no love, nothing. It was like looking at a stranger. The prosecutor was a woman in her 40s named Karen Preston. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. She'd met with me twice to prepare my testimony. Remember, she'd told me, just tell the truth. Don't embellish. Don't minimize. Just tell the jury exactly what happened. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The State of Illinois versus Brandon Michael Hartford. Please be seated. The trial moved faster than I expected. Preston laid out the case methodically. Email evidence, bank records, text messages between Brandon and Amber, medical records both fake and real. Dr. Reynolds testified via video from prison. He explained how Brandon had contacted him, offered him $50,000 to create fake medical records and pose as a hospital doctor. Did you have any hesitation? Preston asked. Yes, but I needed the money. I'd lost my medical license. This was the only way I could make a living. Did Mr. Hartford tell you his mother didn't know the truth? He said she didn't need to know, that it would be easier if she thought she was saving his life. Amber Lee testified next. She wore a modest dress, no makeup, looked nothing like the girl in designer clothes scrolling on her phone. Whose idea was the kidney scheme? Preston asked. Brandon's. He'd been researching it for months. He found Victor Lang's connection to illegal organ brokers on the dark web. And what was your role? I helped him plan, rehearsed what he'd say to his mother, made sure he looked sick. She paused. I knew it was wrong, but Brandon said we'd be set for life, that his mother had a house worth almost $1 million, that she was old and wouldn't live much longer anyway. Wouldn't live much longer anyway. Like I was already dead. Already disposable. The courtroom murmured. The judge banged his gavel. Then it was my turn. The prosecution calls Melissa Hartford. I walked to the witness stand on legs that shook, placed my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Preston approached. Mrs. Hartford, can you tell the jury about your relationship with your son before December of last year? So I did. I told them about the 5 years of silence, the unreturned phone calls, the forgotten birthdays and holidays, the loneliness. When Brandon showed up at your door on December 13th, what did he tell you? That he was dying, that he had kidney failure, that I was his only hope. Did you believe him? Yes, he's my son. I had no reason not to believe him. What did you do? I agreed to donate my kidney, immediately, without hesitation. Preston showed me the consent forms. Did you understand you were signing over your house? No, I thought they were medical forms. Brandon told me to sign where the X's were. I trusted him. Why? The question hung in the air. Because he's my son, I said simply. Because I loved him. Because I thought he loved me. Brandon's lawyer, a public defender named Maxwell Reed, cross-examined me. Mrs. Hartford, you say you didn't read the documents carefully. Isn't it true that you were simply careless? I trusted my son. But you're an educated woman, a former teacher. You could have read more carefully. I trusted my son, I repeated. If you can't trust your own child, who can you trust? Reed tried to paint me as a negligent mother, suggested that Brandon's distance was my fault, that I'd driven him away with neediness. Isn't it true that you called your son excessively, left multiple voicemails? I called because I missed him, because I was alone, because he's my son and I loved him. Loved him enough to smother him, Preston objected. The judge sustained. But the damage was done. Reed was planting seeds of doubt, making it seem like I deserved what Brandon did. Finally, Preston asked, Mrs. Hartford, if you could say one thing to your son, what would it be? I looked at Brandon. He was staring at the table, refusing to meet my eyes. I would tell him that I forgive him, I said quietly. The courtroom went silent. But forgiveness doesn't mean what he did was okay. It doesn't erase the consequences. It doesn't mean I trust him or want him in my life. It just means I'm not going to let his betrayal poison the rest of my life. I'm choosing to move forward, to heal, to find joy again, without him. I stepped down from the witness stand. Brandon finally looked up. Tears ran down his face. Mom, he said. Mom, please. Quiet, the judge said. But I'd already turned away, walked back to my seat, didn't look back. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. They found Brandon guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 12 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole for at least 8. Brandon sobbed as they led him away. Called for me. Mom, please, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I sat still, silent, watched them take him through the door, and felt nothing but relief that it was over. I'm sitting in the garden behind Jonathan's house, watching Emma, Noah, and Sophie play in the spring sunshine. It's been 1 year since the trial. 1 year since Brandon was sent to prison. 1 year since my old life ended and my new life began. I sold my house in Lincoln Park. Too many memories. Too much pain. The money from the sale combined with the $100,000 recovered from Brandon's accounts and Jonathan's insistence that I didn't need to pay rent gave me financial security for the first time in years. I started teaching again. Not full-time, just tutoring. Emma's friends, Noah's classmates, Sophie's kindergarten peers. Word spread that there was a retired teacher living at the Whitmore house who was patient and kind and really good at explaining fractions. I have students 3 afternoons a week. I love it. Jonathan's health is excellent. The kidney is functioning perfectly. He's back to running his company from home with Walter's help. He takes the grandchildren to the park on weekends, to the zoo, to the Museum of Science and Industry. And I go with them. Somewhere along the way, I became part of this family, not as a guest, not as someone they pitied, but as someone they wanted. Emma calls me Grandma Melissa now. It happened gradually. First Miss Melissa, then almost Grandma. Then one day she just said, "Grandma Melissa, can you help me with my science project?" And my heart grew 3 sizes. Noah makes me cards, draws pictures of our family, Jonathan, Walter, Emma, Sophie, him and me. All of us together. He gave me one last week. Our family written in careful letters across the top. I hung it on my refrigerator, the small one in my suite that I barely use because I eat every meal with them in the main house. Sophie crawls into my lap during movie nights, falls asleep with her head on my shoulder, holds my hand when we walk to the park. I have a family again, not the one I was born with, not the one I raised, but a family that chose me, that wants me, that values me. Brandon writes to me from prison, once a month, long letters apologizing, explaining, begging for forgiveness that I've already given, but he can't seem to accept. I don't write back. Not yet. Maybe someday. But not now. Detective Cooper tells me Brandon is in therapy, working through his gambling addiction, his manipulation patterns. The childhood trauma he claims made him who he is. I hope it helps him. I genuinely do. I hope he becomes a better person. I hope when he gets out in 11 years he finds peace. But I won't be part of his life. That door is closed. Today is my 63rd birthday, September 23rd. Jonathan and the children planned a surprise party. They think I don't know, but Sophie can't keep a secret. She told me 3 days ago, bursting with excitement. I'm pretending to be surprised because that's what you do for people you love. The doorbell rings. I hear voices, laughter, people arriving. Emma runs into the garden. "Grandma Melissa, come inside. We have a surprise. A surprise for me." "Yes, come on." I let her pull me into the house. The living room is full of people. Nurse Carol from the hospital, Dr. Bennett, Detective Cooper, Patricia from social services, Emma's teacher, Noah's chess club friends, Sophie's entire kindergarten class, and in the center of it all, a cake, yellow with chocolate frosting, David's favorite, my favorite. "Happy birthday, Melissa," Jonathan says. Sophie tugs my hand. "Make a wish, Grandma, make a wish." I close my eyes. Think about what I want. A year ago, I would have wished for Brandon to change, to become the son I deserved, to love me the way I loved him. But not anymore. Now I wish for this moment, for this family, for this love that I never expected but somehow found. I blow out the candles. Everyone cheers. Emma hugs me. Noah gives me the card he made. Sophie bounces and demands cake immediately. Jonathan stands beside me. "Are you happy?" he asks quietly. "Yes," I say, and I mean it. I'm happy, because family isn't always about blood. It's about showing up, about choosing each other, about love that's earned, not expected. I lost a son, but I gained a family, and that I've learned is more than enough. Some stories don't have neat endings. Life doesn't work that way. But here's where things stand now. Brandon will be released from prison in 2037. He'll be 48 years old. I'll be 73. I don't know if I'll visit him. I don't know if he'll try to contact me. I don't know what our relationship will look like if it exists at all. What I do know is this: I'm living in a beautiful house with a man who's become my dearest friend and 3 children who call me Grandma. I teach 5 afternoons a week. I volunteer at the library on Saturdays. I have coffee with Dr. Bennett once a month. I'm part of a community again. My kidney, the one I gave away thinking I was saving my son, saved Jonathan's life. Gave him years with his grandchildren. Gave me a family I never expected. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead us to the greatest blessings. I'm not grateful for what Brandon did. I'll never be grateful for that. But I'm grateful for where I ended up. If you're watching this and you've been betrayed by family, I want you to know something. It's not your fault. You're not stupid for trusting. You're not weak for loving. You're human. And there are people out there, people you haven't met yet, who will value you, who will choose you, who will show you what real family looks like. Don't give up. Don't let bitterness destroy you. Don't let someone else's cruelty steal your joy. You deserve better, and better is out there, waiting for you. You just have to be brave enough to accept it when it comes. My name is Melissa Hartford. I'm 63 years old. I gave my kidney to my son, and he betrayed me in the worst possible way. But I survived. I healed. I found love again. And if I can do it, so can you.